I'm Lila Chacko, Director of Public Affairs for the India Center at UCF. I'm speaking with Dr. Jaydeep Mukherjee, Director of the Florida Space Grant Consortium, administered through the University of Central Florida and the Florida Space Institute. Dr. Mukherjee, last month, India successfully landed its rover on the moon with the Chandrayaan-3 mission. What does this moon landing represent for the Indian Space Research Organization?
Well, first of all, thank you for talking to me. If you look at the goals of the Chandrayaan-3 mission, there were threefold. One was to have a safe and soft landing on the moon. The second was to maneuver a rover on the moon. And the third was to do in situ experiments involving the resources on the moon. And they have done all three, which means this has been a tremendous success for ISRO and the scientists in India. Now, what it has done for ISRO is given them a boost of confidence to go for other projects. For example, right now there's a satellite which is going to observe the sun far away in space. Then next year, India is planning a manned mission, not to a planet, but just a manned mission, just starting on it. So this success and the fact that India was the first country to land on the south pole of the moon gave it a tremendous boost. And also it's going to allow ISRO to work with other international partners. For example, ISRO is going to work with the Japanese space agency called JAXA on another lunar mission, and I think we launched in 2025. India is going to build a lander, JAXA is going to build a rover, and then NASA and the European Space Agency will have experiments. This success is allowing ISRO now to work with the international partners on a regular basis. And then apart from that, it's just India can now lead internationally exploration of search of frozen water on the south pole of the moon, and also can showcase its technical and scientific prowess to the rest of the world. So in all, this has been a win-win situation for ISRO.
Okay, so you brought up the south side of the moon. Why did India focus on landing on the south side of the moon?
So the whole world is trying to land on the south pole of the moon, and India was first. And the main reason is that we have found ice on the floor of the craters in the south pole of the moon. And we believe that these ice came from comets in the past, which has crashed onto the moon. And the question is, why didn't the ice melt? And the reason is that the moon's axis is so slightly tilted, nothing like the Earth, that in the South Pole, the sun barely rises above the horizon. So on the floor of the craters, sunlight does not reach there at all. So the ice which was deposited by the comets has remained there. And why is that exciting? Because if we can find ice, and we're not 100% sure about it, but if there is ice, we can collect the ice, we can get water from it, and then from the water we can get hydrogen and oxygen. We can use the oxygen to breathe. We can use the hydrogen to use as a rocket fuel. So every nation in the world which wants to go to the moon will land in the South Pole just because there are resources that they can use either to have settlements on the moon or for further exploration.
Okay. So since the moon landing, what has the rover discovered?
A number of things. The first thing it discovered was the presence of sulfur on the moon. It is very difficult to detect sulfur from observations by orbiting the moon. But here there's an instrument on the rover which kind of heats up some of the soil, and then you can study the elements in the soil. So they have found sulfur, they have found aluminum, they have found iron, a lot of other elements, some rare earth elements which can be used for electronics. And then if you can get hydrogen or even helium, this can be used for nuclear fusion in the future. So that's one thing. The second thing that they found was very interesting, that the rover has a payload called, I think it's called the Lunar Seismic Activity Payload. And what it did was, as it went over the surface, it detected a rumbling, which was more than the normal vibrations that the rover was finding as it went across the surface. And we believe that this larger event is due to a moonquake. Now, you have to have more observations to come up with a final definite answer. But that's another thing that they found is a moonquake that has not been detected by a rover before. And the third thing it found was that what they did was there was another instrument which kind of dug about 2 or 3 inches into the surface of the moon. And they found that the difference in temperature from the surface of the moon to the 3 inches deep was about 140 Fahrenheit, colder than the surface. And that's amazing because, if you're talking about very cold temperatures below the surface of the moon, there's a chance of water molecules finding over there. And to give an analogy, if you go to a beach and it's a very hot day, the sand on the top is very hot. But if you dig down deep with your fingers, it'll be cooler down. In the moon, it's a big difference in the temperatures. That's a very exciting finding, never done before. And the third one I'm trying to remember was, I think these are the 3 main things I would say is the moonquake, the difference in temperature, and the presence of other elements on the lunar surface.
Okay, it's all very fascinating to me, so interesting, and I hadn't heard these things before. So now that we've had this success, what's next for India's space future?
Well, the space future is so exciting now in India, and I'm really excited more than anyone else is because ISRO has embraced the private sector. It was not the case years ago. Because it has embraced the private sector, universities and small companies are playing a big role. Believe it or not, there have been 140 registered startup companies in the last year or so. These startup companies are going to help ISRO with the payloads, the building of rockets, building of other instruments. That is great. The other thing is that students, whether they are school students or in college, especially in rural areas, have been so excited by India's success that they want to work more in technology challenging fields, which is a very good sign for India, because that means India will be a very highly technical society in the future. And the other thing which ISRO has done, which has helped the space program, is they have reached out to these rural areas in India. We no longer have to rely on the IITs and the big engineering colleges. These rural areas in India, the students are so excited to be a part of programs which ISRO has started by engaging with high school students, that given India's large population, given India's good education level, the future for ISRO is a lot better than most of the space agencies around the world, because it has the potential of this talent, the educational talent and the knowledge talent that it'll have. So to me, that's the most exciting part. India's space program is going to just evolve rapidly right now with the help of these students across the nation.
Well, it'll be exciting to see what happens. That's for sure. I thank you, Dr. Mukherjee, for joining the India Center this morning. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.